The morning light spilled lazily across our cul-de-sac, that carefully landscaped corner of suburbia where lawns stayed trim and secrets stayed buried. At least, that's what I used to think. I was married to Dana Whitaker. Blonde, graceful, never too loud, never too disheveled. A woman who, on paper, was everything a man like me should be thankful for. We had 2 kids, a house with white trim and a wraparound porch, and friends who hosted wine nights and watched NFL Sundays like religion. People called us the perfect couple. Hell, I probably called us that too, until recently, when things stopped adding up. It started with the small things, as most stories like this do. Dana started locking her phone. That may sound trivial to some, but after 17 years of marriage, she'd never once guarded that device like it held state secrets. I noticed the way she'd tilt the screen away when I walked past, how her laugh changed depending on who she was texting. Soft, flirtatious, not the way you laugh when your sister sends a meme. I told myself it was paranoia. We were in a rut, that's all. Kids, work, the grind. Maybe she needed her space. Maybe we both did. But then came the errands. Late-night runs to the store for things we didn't need. Avocados, wine, new foundation. I once found a receipt from a gas station 20 miles away, in the opposite direction of the store she swore she'd gone to. That was when the knot in my stomach started tightening. We weren't fighting. Not really. But there was an edge to our silence. She touched me less, smiled with her mouth more than her eyes. Her scent had changed too. New perfume, something floral and heady. Sexy, not sweet. I couldn't tell you when the change happened, only that it was gradual, like boiling water. You never notice the heat until you're cooked. I thought maybe it was me, that I wasn't present enough, that my job, my stress, my aging body were pushing her away. I tried to fix it. Date nights, flowers, small compliments. She appreciated them, or at least pretended to, but nothing cracked the wall she was quietly building between us. What really twisted the knife, though, were the neighbors. Our community was tight-knit, or at least it pretended to be. People waved when they passed, brought casseroles when someone got sick. But lately, they were too polite around me, overly smiley, pausing just a little too long before speaking, like trying not to mention the elephant in the room. Only I couldn't see it yet. Derek from across the street used to talk my ear off about Broncos games and grilling techniques. Lately, he avoided eye contact. Sarah, our next-door neighbor who always came to Dana for book recommendations, now turned chilly when I said hello. One morning, I caught her whispering to her husband and glancing at our house through the blinds. They looked guilty. I walked inside, poured myself a coffee, and tried to ignore the way the liquid trembled in my cup. Dana breezed through the room wearing yoga pants and a top she'd never worn before. Tight, cropped, hugging curves she hadn't flaunted in years. Her hair was freshly curled. Makeup, flawless. She smelled like something expensive and forbidden. Going to yoga? I asked casually, sipping my coffee. She smiled. Yeah, and then maybe grabbing a smoothie with some girls. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up quickly and turned its screen down on the counter. I nodded, like everything was normal. Like I didn't want to reach across the island, grab that phone, and smash it into pieces. You look nice, I said. Dana blinked, just for a second. Thanks. New top. Her hesitation was microscopic, but I caught it. Yeah, just something I found on sale. She grabbed her keys and kissed my cheek. Barely. Then she was gone. I stood there, the silence roaring louder than the blender she forgot to turn off. That afternoon, I trimmed the hedges. Just something to stay busy, to keep my hands from picking up her phone while she showered. That's when I saw Derek again, standing at the end of his driveway. Our eyes met for half a second. He looked like he wanted to say something. Instead, he just nodded once and turned away, pulling his garbage bin back toward his house like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The knot in my gut pulled tighter. That night, I lay awake while Dana slept beside me, or at least pretended to. Her breathing was too even, her body too still. I listened for any sign of restlessness, any whispered name in her dreams. Nothing came. I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I was losing my mind, or if I was finally starting to see the truth. Somewhere inside me, something primal stirred. The feeling a man gets when he realizes his home has been breached, but he doesn't know where the intruder is hiding yet. But I would find it, even if it destroyed me. It was a Wednesday morning when the whisper came. I was loading mulch into the back of my truck, sweat bleeding through my shirt under the late spring sun. The front yard had become my sanctuary of avoidance. If I could keep the lawn sharp, the hedges squared, the flower beds pristine, then maybe the cracks inside the house wouldn't swallow me whole. Maybe I'd believe, for a little longer, that everything was still fine. But the cracks were spreading. "Hey, Jack," a voice said quietly from the sidewalk. I turned to see Carol, the widow from 4 doors down, the one with the 2 golden retrievers and the best rose garden in the zip code. She wore gardening gloves and a floppy hat, but even through the sun and shade, I could see the hesitation in her eyes. "Hey, Carol," I said, straightening up, wiping my hands on my jeans. She took a step closer, then paused. "You doing okay?" she asked. It was a strange question from someone I barely spoke to beyond the occasional wave or compliment about our mutual battles with crabgrass. I hesitated. "Yeah, why?" Carol looked around like someone might be listening, then pulled her hat off. "Look, I don't want to step out of line," she said. "But you might want to open your eyes a little more." My chest tightened. "What's that supposed to mean?" She fidgeted with her gloves. "You didn't hear this from me. But some of the folks around here are talking." "Talking?" I echoed, heart pounding in my ears. She nodded. "About Dana. And someone else. Someone on this street." I froze, mulch forgotten at my feet. "I thought you should know," Carol added, her voice barely above a whisper now. "People think you don't see it, that you're being made a fool of." I couldn't even manage a response. I just stood there, limbs heavy, brain fogged. Carol glanced over her shoulder. "I'm sorry. Maybe it's nothing. Just be careful, Jack." And then she walked away, down the sidewalk, the leash of one of her goldens slipping from her wrist as she fumbled to reattach it. The world felt suddenly unsteady. I spent the next hour pretending I was still working, but I wasn't. My head reeled. Someone on this street. I replayed those 4 words over and over. The neighborhood was tight. That made it worse. That night, I sat through dinner with Dana and the kids. She was chirpy again, laughing too loudly at Max's sarcastic jokes, complimenting Ellie's hand-drawn planets. I stared at her mouth when she smiled, the same lips I'd kissed 1,000 times. The same mouth that might be whispering things to someone else. Later, after the kids went upstairs, Dana poured herself a glass of red wine and curled up on the couch. "You okay?" she asked, glancing over at me. "Long day," I said, watching the way her thumb lazily swirled the wine in the glass. "You see Carol today?" She shook her head casually. "No. Why?" She seemed off. Dana's eyes flickered, barely a twitch. "She's always kind of weird." I nodded slowly, filing away her answer. The next few days passed in a haze. I watched everything. Her smiles, her footsteps, the way she lingered outside during phone calls. I knew I was spiraling, but I couldn't stop. I was hunting something invisible. Then came Saturday. I was at the community rec center for Max's JV soccer game. Dana said she couldn't come, yoga and errands, again, but I didn't believe her anymore. After the game, while I was gathering folding chairs and throwing Gatorade bottles into a trash bag, I overheard 2 dads near the chain-link fence. "Saw them at the Safeway again," one said, his voice low but clear. "Same car. Same time." "You serious?" the other replied. "Same red blouse. Tight as hell. She wasn't wearing a bra, man." My stomach flipped. "Her husband's clueless," the first guy added. "Total ghost. Probably thinks she's still just doing Pilates." They laughed. I stepped around the corner slowly, pretending to fiddle with the strap of my gym bag. It took me 3 seconds to realize who they were talking about. The red blouse. The one Dana wore last week when she left for groceries. I clenched my fists. My jaw. Everything. They didn't notice me. I wanted to walk up to them, ask straight out, "Who is he?" But I didn't. Not yet. Back at home, Dana was in the shower when I got back, again, long and hot. Her phone lay face down on the kitchen counter. I stared at it like a loaded gun. Locked, password protected. She'd started using Face ID. Subtle, but enough to tell me that she was hiding something. When she came downstairs, fresh and radiant, she smiled at me and asked, "How was the game?" I stared at her for a beat too long. "We lost." She nodded. "Too bad. Maybe next time." She walked past me and into the living room, her hips swaying in those yoga leggings. Something about her made me ache, and not in a good way. The old ache, the warm one, was gone. This one was cold, tight, distant. That night I sat on the porch until midnight, listening to the stillness of the neighborhood. I watched the houses, the lights that turned off slowly, one by one, and I wondered, was he inside one of them? Was I drinking a beer 20 feet away from the man who'd been inside my wife? That thought hit me so hard I nearly vomited. I didn't want to confront Dana yet. Not without proof. Words could be twisted. Tears could be manufactured. But proof, real proof, would shut every lie down. So I made a decision. I was going to find it. Because Carol was right. I needed to open my eyes. And once I did, I knew I wouldn't be able to close them again. I never meant to find it. That's the part that haunts me. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't digging. I was just trying to connect. Trying to remember what it was like to know my wife. It was a Tuesday evening, and Dana had left her phone on the kitchen counter when she went upstairs to fold laundry, or so she said. Ellie was doing homework at the table. Max had retreated to his usual teenage fortress behind earbuds and a hoodie. The house was quiet. Her screen lit up. A message banner. Just for a second. I missed the way you taste. I stared at it, breath stuck in my throat. My first instinct was disbelief. Maybe it was spam. Some sick joke. But then the screen lit again. Thursday can't come fast enough. That mouth fuck. The name attached to the messages was Mark S. Mark S. And just like that, the room went quiet in a new, awful way. Not because anything changed, but because I had changed. Everything I thought was paranoid delusion, now it had a name. A contact. Hands shaking, I reached for the phone. Still locked. Still useless. But something clicked. Dana had an old iPad tucked in the junk drawer by the fridge. She used it to read cookbooks and play podcasts, but she hadn't touched it in months. I pulled it out, hoping, praying, that she hadn't logged out of her accounts. The screen blinked awake, battery miraculously holding at 32%. I opened messages. She was still logged in. It took half a second for the conversation with Mark S. to pop into view. The texts synced automatically, the digital equivalent of fate swinging open a trapdoor beneath my feet. And then, I saw everything. Mark S. was Mark Halston, my fucking neighbor, my grilling buddy, the guy I helped install a new garbage disposal last fall. We'd split a 12-pack on my porch not even 2 months ago, and there he was, talking to my wife like she was his personal plaything. Mark, still thinking about last Friday. That little noise you made when I bent you over the hood of my car. Dana, I was so sore the next morning. I had to lie to Jack and say it was from yoga. Mark, I want that ass again. No panties this time. Dana, only if you promise not to leave hickeys where he can see them this time. Mark, tell him you're working late again Thursday. Dana, already did. He believes everything. Sweet, clueless Jack. I had to put the iPad down. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just stared. A frozen, buzzing ache settled in my chest. This was it. The confirmation. The collision. The end of pretending. They'd been meeting up weekly, sometimes more. Quickies in his car. Motel rooms paid in cash. Once in our house, when I took Max to an away game overnight. My stomach turned when I read that one. I scrolled for another 10 minutes before the screen dimmed in my hands. Photos. Not explicit, but intimate. Dana in that red blouse. No bra. Lips parted. Dana lying in bed with sheets bunched around her waist, skin flushed. Dana smiling at the camera in my shirt, the one I thought she'd stolen from the laundry out of affection. I backed out of the message thread, hands shaking. It wasn't just sex. It wasn't just a fling. It was deception embedded in the fabric of our everyday life. Carefully constructed lies tucked between carpools, game nights, and family dinners. I stared at the kitchen ceiling for a long time. At the recessed light above the sink. The one I installed after Dana complained about shadows on the cutting board. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I didn't storm upstairs. I didn't smash the iPad. I didn't grab her by the wrist and demand the truth I already knew. Instead, I stood up. Calm. Numb. I walked to the garage, opened my laptop on the workbench, and pulled up my email. I clicked compose. To Emily. Halston at Gmail. Calm. Subject, we need to talk. Body. Hi Emily. I'm Jack Whitaker. I think our spouses have been seeing each other. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I believe we might both benefit from a conversation. If you're willing to talk, please let me know. I'm not looking for drama. Just truth. Jack. I hit send. Then I closed the laptop, walked back into the house, and smiled at Ellie when she asked if she could have a cookie. Sure, kiddo, I said. Dana came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair damp, smile painted on. Everything okay? I nodded. Yeah. Just thinking about dinner plans. She leaned over and kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. Like she wasn't fucking the neighbor. Like I was still asleep. And maybe I had been. But not anymore. Emily replied in under an hour. Subject. We need to talk. Hi, Jack. I had a feeling this was coming. Let's meet tomorrow. I need to know what you know. Emily. She suggested a cafe on the edge of town, neutral territory. Not one of the cozy, suburban spots where Mark and Dana might have been seen. This place was quieter, older, tucked between an antique bookstore and a dry cleaner. The kind of cafe where the booths were faded red leather and the coffee tasted like burnt history. When I arrived, she was already there, seated at the far end near a dusty window, a steaming cup in front of her. She looked tired, like a woman holding herself together with pins and thread. But she also looked prepared. I'd only met Emily in passing, backyard parties, a few ways from driveways. She was pretty, in a sharp, understated way. Dark hair, soft jawline, no-nonsense eyes. She wore no ring. I slid into the booth across from her. Emily. Jack, she said, voice flat. So, we're here. We didn't shake hands. Didn't smile. What was there to smile about? I wasn't sure if I was crazy. I said quietly, staring into the black swirl of my coffee. But I think I'm not. You're not, she replied, reaching into her leather tote. She pulled out a manila folder and set it between us. I've known for about 3 weeks. I opened it slowly. Inside were printed screenshots, time-stamped text logs, and photos. One photo showed Dana leaning into Mark's car window, laughing, hand resting on the doorframe a little too intimately. Another showed them walking out of a hotel 15 miles outside the neighborhood. Why didn't you confront them? I asked. Emily stared out the window, fingers tight around her cup. Because I needed to be sure. Because I didn't want to blow up my marriage over a hunch. Because I still loved him, maybe. Because I didn't want to be humiliated until I had no other choice. I nodded slowly. Yeah. And you? She asked, looking at me finally. How long have you known? Yesterday, I admitted. I found the messages. Her iPad was still logged in. Emily's mouth twitched. Rookie mistake. A silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable. Just heavy. We were two people sitting in the wreckage, comparing what was left. I didn't think I'd be here, I said after a while. Having this kind of conversation with a neighbor's wife. She gave a small laugh, dry and sad. Welcome to the club. I traced a finger over the edge of one of the photos. Dana's smile, and it looked so genuine. So happy. It made me nauseous. Emily noticed. You think they're in love? She asked quietly. I shook my head. I think they're in escape. From responsibility. From boredom. From us. Emily's eyes shimmered but didn't fall. It's not the sex that hurts, she said. It's the way they look at each other. Like they're free. That hit harder than I expected. What are you going to do? She asked. I leaned back. I don't know. Scream? Leave? Pretend I never saw anything? Burn the house down? A faint smile touched her lips. All valid options. We sat in silence again, sipping coffee that had gone lukewarm. Eventually, she leaned forward. Look, she said, voice lower now. We could go to them separately. Let it explode. Cry. Yell. Watch them lie. Or, I asked. She hesitated. Or we stay calm. Smart. Patient. And do what? We work together. Not for revenge, she added quickly. At least, not just that. But for clarity. For truth. For dignity. The word dignity hit me right in the gut. She slid the folder closer to me. You can keep that. I've got digital copies. I've been documenting things. Slowly. I was going to tell Dana I knew, I said, almost to myself. But now. Don't. Emily interrupted. Not yet. If you tell her now, she'll go full defense mode. She'll turn it into your fault. She'll play the victim. I didn't want to believe it. But deep down, I knew she was right. Emily tilted her head. Wouldn't you rather show them we're not clueless? That we're stronger than they thought? I looked at her. Not just at her, but into her, the pain behind the confidence. The betrayal behind the strategy. I don't want to be that guy, I said. The one who just gets steamrolled and slinks away. You're not, she said. That's why you wrote me. I exhaled. We talked for another hour. Shared timelines. Compared notes. Pieced things together with the precision of two amateur detectives chasing their own heartbreak. They met mostly during work hours. Thursdays, lunch breaks, fake client meetings. Dana told me she was going to yoga or browsing home decor stores. Mark told Emily he was working late. Sometimes they'd sneak out early, meet up, and still be home by dinner. They were careful, but not careful enough. By the time we finished our second cups, a plan had begun to form. Not revenge, not yet. Just a strategy. A way to take our power back. As we stood to leave, Emily hesitated beside the table. "I don't know what this is yet," she said softly. "But I don't want to go through it alone." "Neither do I." She nodded once, then turned and walked away. I watched her disappear down the sidewalk, the weight in my chest a little more manageable now. That night, I sat across from Dana at dinner. She told me about her afternoon run, her client call, the salad she liked at a place I knew she hadn't gone. I smiled, asked about the dressing, acted like I was still asleep. But now I was wide awake. And she had no idea. The thing about betrayal is that once it finds a way in, it doesn't just sit in a corner. It expands. It creeps into conversations, rewrites memories, poisons quiet moments. But instead of letting it hollow me out, I decided to do what I do best, build something. Even if it was for the purpose of tearing everything else down. Emily and I started meeting regularly after that first cafe encounter. Never in the neighborhood. Always somewhere anonymous. Coffee shops, a bench near the reservoir. Even once in the back corner of the public library like a pair of plotting fugitives. We kept it under the radar, each of us paranoid in our own way. She was sure Mark would catch on. I was sure Dana would start asking questions. But neither of them did. They were too wrapped up in their fantasy. We called our sessions strategy meetings, though that barely covered it. Yes, we talked logistics. Yes, we plotted timelines. Yes, we compared surveillance, photos, receipts, lies we caught them telling. But somewhere along the line, our conversation shifted. She started asking about me. Not just cheated on me, but the man I used to be. The one who built the pergola in our backyard by hand. The one who made dinner on Fridays with a beer in one hand and music playing too loud in the background. I hadn't seen him in a while, and I asked about her. About how long she'd been surviving instead of living. About the man she used to believe Mark was. Somehow, sharing that brokenness made things easier. I used to feel invisible, she admitted one afternoon, sipping coffee on the tailgate of my truck, parked behind a closed antique mall. Mark stopped seeing me years ago. I thought maybe it was just marriage. That kind of distance. But now I realize he didn't just stop seeing me. He started seeing someone else. I nodded slowly, my eyes on the empty parking lot. I don't remember the last time Dana looked at me and meant it, like she was actually present. Emily looked up, studying me for a beat. "You're not invisible. You're just with the wrong person." The silence that followed that hung heavy between us, not awkward, but thick with something we both hadn't expected. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. A bond born of shared wreckage. "So what's the plan?" I asked, pulling us back on track. Emily smirked. "The neighborhood summer barbecue." I blinked. "Seriously?" She nodded. "It's perfect. Everyone's there. Everyone who's already whispering behind their hands. We don't have to say much. We just have to let them see." I tilted my head. "You want to go nuclear?" "No," she said. "I want to go undeniable. No more hiding. No more speculation. Just truth. Right in the middle of their curated little suburban fairy tale." I exhaled slowly, thinking it through. The barbecue was always the big one. Everyone brought their best dish, wore their brightest smiles. Kids played in the sprinklers, adults drank beer and talked politics or recipes. It was the definition of community, of appearances. "Won't they expect something like that?" I asked. "Mark and Dana?" Emily smiled. "Not if they think we're still asleep." And that's what we did. We played our roles like seasoned actors. I became the doting husband again. Dana, flush with the thrill of secrecy, lapped it up. She laughed more, touched my arm more, sent me sexy texts in the middle of the day, probably to cover her tracks. But I knew where she really was. She even brought up the barbecue over dinner one night, grinning as she chewed a forkful of pasta. "Mark's helping plan the drink station again," she said. "You two should coordinate on the beer coolers." I smiled. "Yeah, I'll reach out." Inside, I was boiling. She had no idea I'd already planned the entire fucking thing, with his wife. The week before the storm was like living two lives. I made grilled cheese sandwiches for Ellie, dropped Max off at football, kissed Dana goodnight while she texted Mark from the bathroom. And then I'd slip out and meet Emily somewhere in the dark, where she'd pull out a notebook and read off the final steps like a war general. We keep the reveal simple, she said one night, legs curled under her on a picnic bench. Not dramatic, not crazy, just truth presented cleanly. And then what? I asked. She shrugged. Then they deal with the fallout. We get to walk away knowing we didn't stoop to their level. We didn't scream. We didn't beg. We just showed them what they are. There was something powerful in that. Something final. It was our last meeting before the barbecue. I walked her to her car. It was getting cold out, the kind of chill that crept under your jacket and made you instinctively pull closer to warmth. She hesitated at the door. Jack? Yeah? Her voice softened. Whatever happened Saturday, thank you for not making me go through this alone. I nodded. You don't have to thank me. You're the only reason I'm not losing my mind right now. She leaned in and hugged me. A long, quiet embrace. Not sexual, not romantic, just real. But something shifted inside me. And when she pulled away, her hands lingered for a moment. You okay? She asked, her eyes searching mine. Yeah, I said. I think I'm finally getting there. The Monday before the barbecue, Dana danced into the kitchen like a woman in love. She was wearing one of those loose summer dresses, white, floral, delicate in a way that made it hard to ignore how her hips moved beneath the thin fabric. Her hair was damp from the shower, still curling at the ends, and she smelled like grapefruit and vanilla. You wouldn't believe the texts I got today, she said, giggling. Everyone's so excited for Saturday. I nodded, flipping pancakes for Ellie. Yeah? What's the head count? About 50. Mark says he's bringing his famous chili again. My stomach turned, but I smiled anyway. Dana didn't notice. She was too busy texting someone beneath the table. I didn't need to ask who. She'd gotten sloppy, but not in a way that looked like guilt. It was more like arrogance. Like she thought she'd mastered the balancing act, loving wife on one hand, secret sex goddess on the other. The way she moved around me now wasn't distant like it had been before. It was more smug, confident, like she knew a secret and believed I was too blind to find it. That amused me more than it should have. By midweek, she was full-on glowing. She started wearing tighter clothes, brighter lipstick, even shaved both legs for the first time in weeks. I caught her humming while folding laundry. She made blueberry muffins, just because. At one point, I came home early and heard her singing in the shower. She hadn't sung in the shower in years. It made my skin crawl, and I played right along. I told her I'd help Mark with the coolers. I told her I was excited for the barbecue. I even asked if she wanted me to set up the string lights out back, pretending I didn't notice her texting behind her back during our conversation. She smiled and said, "You're the best." I smiled back. That's what I'm here for. The lights went up Thursday night. I strung them across the pergola I built 2 summers ago, the one Dana once called the sexiest thing I ever made. Ironic, considering who she now fantasized about beneath it. Friday was when things shifted. Emily and I hadn't spoken face-to-face since our last planning session. We'd kept our distance on purpose. But that afternoon, while Dana was out picking up wine and napkins, I got a text. "Emily, can we meet? Tonight?" Me, of course. "You okay?" "Emily, just need a moment. Not tactical, just personal." We met at the park after sundown. Same bench near the old duck pond, far enough from streetlights to feel invisible. She was already there when I arrived, arms crossed, hoodie zipped up to her throat despite the warm air. "Everything all right?" I asked, sitting beside her. She was quiet for a beat. Then, "Mark tried to initiate sex last night." I looked at her carefully. "Did you?" "No." Her voice was hollow. I told him I had a headache. He didn't push, but he looked disappointed. I exhaled. "I'm sorry." She turned to me. "It's like I'm living with a stranger. But worse. It's like I'm performing next to someone who already wrote me out of the script." I knew that feeling. I'd been feeling it for months. "You still okay with tomorrow?" I asked softly. She nodded. "More than okay. I need it." The silence between us lingered. Then she said it. "I've been thinking about you." I looked over, and she was already watching me. "Me too," I admitted. She leaned closer. Her perfume was subtle, clean, like linen, and something warm underneath. Her eyes searched mine for hesitation. She didn't find any. When she rested her head on my shoulder, I didn't move. When her hand found mine, I let it stay. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But we came close. Breath close. Heat close. When we pulled away, it was with something unspoken but real. "This isn't revenge," she whispered. "I know. We parted with a promise. Tomorrow, we play our roles. We tell no lies. We simply hold the mirror up and let them see what they are. And maybe after that, we start something real. Something not built on lies or pretending. Something that doesn't need shadows. When I got home, Dana was in bed in a silk nightgown I hadn't seen in years. Her leg peeked from under the sheet like an invitation. "You're up late," she said, stretching, arching subtly. "Had a call with a vendor." I lied easily, sliding off my watch. She gave me a slow once-over. "You look good." I smiled. "So do you." She rolled onto her side, propping her head on her hand. "You excited for tomorrow?" I nodded. "Yeah, everyone's going to be there." Her eyes sparkled. "Exactly." She leaned in for a kiss. I let her. Soft. Controlled. She thought she was winning. Tomorrow, she'd realize just how wrong she was. Saturday morning arrived with deceptive calm. Birdsong. Sunlight through blinds. Dana humming in the kitchen as she prepped the deviled eggs she knew the neighbors loved. Her hair was in a soft updo, loose curls falling at her neck, and she wore that sundress again, the white one that clung in the right places and made men glance twice without understanding why. I watched her from the hallway, sipping coffee, heart thrumming. "You look handsome today," she said over her shoulder, not quite turning to meet my eyes. "Thanks," I said, buttoning my shirt. "You planning on turning some heads?" She grinned coyly. "Maybe just one." That should have meant me. Maybe she even believed it did. The hours passed in a blur of folding chairs and grill prep. Neighbors began arriving early afternoon. The Harises brought that overcooked peach cobbler again. Derek and Sarah, quiet lately, brought burgers and forced smiles. Kids screamed through sprinklers. Beer bottles popped. Music played through a Bluetooth speaker that someone clipped to the pergola. I played my part. Shook hands. Flipped burgers. Laughed when it was expected. Dana clung to me more than usual, like a woman showing off her prize. I felt her hand graze my back more than once. Casual, but marked with a nervous energy I couldn't unsee anymore. She kept looking over her shoulder. Waiting. Watching. And just before 3 p.m., Mark walked into the backyard. With Emily. It was subtle, but Dana stiffened at my side. Just for a second. Just enough for me to feel it. Her eyes flicked toward them, then quickly away, and she took a sip of her wine with a smile she didn't quite finish. Emily wore a navy blue sundress and sunglasses. Her hair was pulled back in a way I hadn't seen before, simple but powerful. She didn't look broken. She looked ready. Mark, for his part, looked confused. Tight-jawed. His hand hovered near Emily's lower back, but never touched it. She walked 2 steps ahead of him, eyes scanning the crowd. When her gaze found mine across the yard, we didn't smile. We didn't wave. We nodded. A pact, silent and firm. For the next half hour, the storm circled. Dana kept checking her phone like she was waiting for a message that never came. Mark stayed close to the drink table, fake laughing with whoever wandered nearby. Emily was a ghost at the edges, calm, collected, unreadable. Then, just as the sun passed overhead and the burgers hit their peak, the moment came. Someone, Derek, maybe, clanged a fork against a mason jar. "Let's raise a glass to summer," he said cheerfully. "To this amazing neighborhood. To old friends and new." People gathered, cups and bottles lifted. Dana slid her hand into mine automatically. I let her, and then I let go. I stepped away from her without a word. Walked through the gathering like it was a movie set, and I was the only one awake. I crossed the lawn and stopped in front of Emily. Her eyes met mine. She didn't blink. I leaned in and whispered, "Ready to end this?" She nodded, lips parted slightly, breath caught. I lifted her face gently with one hand and kissed her. Not hard, not hungry, soft, intentional, real. A kiss that said, "I see you. I've seen enough. We're done pretending." Behind us, I heard the hush. Gasps. A drink sloshed onto the grass. Someone muttered, "Holy shit." When I pulled back, the world had frozen. Kids stood mid-sprint. Music still played, a happy, upbeat track at complete odds with the weight of the moment. My wife was 3 feet behind me, holding a red cup in one hand and a plastic fork in the other like someone had unplugged her from reality. Mark looked like he'd swallowed his own tongue. I turned slowly to face them. "I know everything," I said. Calm. Loud enough. Gasps rippled again. Dana's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her hand dropped the cup. Red wine splashed against her sandals. Mark looked at Emily like she might save him. She didn't. I looked directly at my wife. For For months. Maybe longer. You lied to me. You sneaked around with him. I nodded toward Mark. In cars, in hotels, in our own fucking neighborhood. Jack, Dana finally managed, voice thin, cracking. No, I said, holding up a hand. Don't insult me with a denial. Everyone's already read your script. I turned to the stunned crowd, faces slack with shock. I just thought everyone else should see the real version of the couple they've been smiling at. No one said a word. Not yet. Mark started to speak, but Emily cut in. We know, she said, her voice sharp, clear. All of it. The texts, the photos, the lies. Dana looked like a wax figure melting in the sun. Her eyes darted from face to face, searching for someone to pull her out of the moment. No one moved. No one would. And then, just like that, it was done. I stepped back. Emily did the same. We left them there, standing in the wreckage. I didn't look back. If you looked at the neighborhood that morning, you'd think it was just another picturesque summer Saturday. Blue sky. A gentle breeze. The smell of grilled meat beginning to waft through the air. Kids laughing, chasing each other between bounce houses and sprinklers. Lawn chairs and lemonade. Laughter. Music. It was the kind of scene that made realtors smile. It was also the scene of a slow-motion implosion. I woke up early. Earlier than usual. Made coffee, showered, shaved. I trimmed my beard a little sharper than normal and picked a clean, fitted shirt. Dana came down mid-morning, looking radiant and too cheerful. She had that energy that people get when they're about to see their secret lover, but pretending it's about a party. She wore a dress I'd never seen before, something flirty and soft pink with thin straps and a neckline that was more revealing than she usually dared around neighbors. Her perfume lingered in the air long after she passed. She was practically glowing. You like it? She asked, giving me a little twirl like we were 20-somethings on a first date. You look beautiful, I said with a smile. She beamed. She believed me. I watched her prep fruit skewers with hummingbird energy, phone never far from her hand. At one point, she bit her lip while texting, one of those small, intimate gestures that used to belong to me. I didn't ask who it was. I didn't have to. I'd already memorized Mark's number. The backyard began filling up around noon. Folding tables were spread with chips, dips, soda cans sweating in coolers. Derek manned the grill while his wife tried to wrangle their toddler. Music played over a speaker clipped to the fence, upbeat indie rock. Safe. Pleasant. Dana floated between conversations, laughing too brightly, refilling drinks that didn't need refilling, always casting quick glances toward the side gate. Mark hadn't arrived yet. I played host, smiled at the right times, offered burgers, poured lemonade. People kept commenting on how perfect everything was. It was almost offensive, hearing those words. Perfect house. Perfect weather. Perfect couple. If they only knew. At 1:37 p.m., the side gate creaked open. And there he was. Mark strolled in like a man who believed he was still the hero of this story. Polo shirt, mirrored sunglasses, that same cocky smirk he wore every time he talked sports with me while ogling my wife behind my back. But today, he wasn't alone. Emily walked in beside him. And that changed everything. She didn't cling to him. She didn't smile like a wife walking with her husband. She walked half a pace ahead of him, poised, spine straight. Her sundress was modest but elegant. Her chin high, her eyes scanning the crowd like a sniper locking targets. I watched Dana from across the yard. She was talking to Sarah, laughing. The moment she saw them, her mouth froze mid-word. Her wine sloshed slightly in the cup. Her body went still, just for a moment, but I saw it. I felt it. She blinked fast, forced a smile, and turned away like she hadn't seen anything. But she had. Mark tried to play it cool, mingling with the guys by the grill. He gave me a quick nod, just a flick of acknowledgement. I returned it. Across the lawn, Emily stood near the dessert table, speaking with a couple of other wives. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the careful restraint in her expression. But she didn't waver. Dana, meanwhile, grew more jittery as the minutes passed. Her laughter got louder, faker. She kept touching her hair, her dress, her phone. Then she started circling the yard like she was looking for someone. Not me. Him. The music changed. Someone cranked the volume. People were dancing now. Mark moved toward the drinks table, and Dana drifted that direction too. Their paths almost intersected. Almost. But Emily intercepted. She stepped between them with surgical timing, smiling, handing Dana a drink with the poise of a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. The three of them stood in a brief, awkward triangle. I started walking across the yard. Somewhere behind me, someone began setting up a makeshift microphone for the usual welcome toast. The air changed. It was subtle, like that stillness before a summer storm, when the clouds haven't formed yet, but everyone feels them coming. Conversations grew more fragmented. The music felt too loud, the laughter too forced. Emily locked eyes with me from across the yard. She gave the smallest nod, and I knew. It was time. I broke from the grill. Slowly, casually, but with purpose. I walked past Dana, close enough that she noticed, but not close enough to reach. I walked toward Emily. People started turning, like they could sense something invisible unfolding. Plates froze midway to mouths. Kids slowed their play. Mark saw me. His sunglasses were off now. He looked confused, worried, like someone realizing the ground under him might not be solid after all. I stopped beside Emily. She turned to me, calm as glass. I leaned in, just enough to be intimate without whispering. Ready to end it? She nodded. We turned to face the crowd. And in that instant, every cheerful lie that this neighborhood had ever swallowed was about to taste its truth. I didn't feel nervous. That surprised me. As I stood there beside Emily, with the sun warming the top of my shoulders and 50 pairs of eyes starting to shift in our direction, I expected the shaking hands, the dry mouth, the pounding heart. But no, there was a calm, a strange clarity, like I was finally doing something that mattered. Something true. The microphone crackled. Derek tapped it twice, holding his plastic cup aloft. All right, folks, if I could just have your attention real quick, let's do the traditional neighborhood toast before we get too many beers deep. Laughter. Light applause. Dana was standing near the patio, flanked by two other wives. Her posture was rigid now, her jaw tight. She looked like she was trying to decide whether to stay frozen or run. Mark stood closer to the grill. He hadn't taken a sip of his beer. He was watching me. He knew. Somewhere in that lizard brain of his, he felt the shift in the room. The way people were watching, how I was standing a little too close to his wife, how Emily hadn't looked at him once since they arrived. But he didn't move. He was still hoping it would pass, that we wouldn't say anything, that the illusion would hold. That's when Emily reached for my hand. We didn't make a show of it. We didn't need to. Just a gentle intertwining of fingers, enough to signal something had changed. Everything had changed. I saw Dana flinch. She blinked rapidly. Her lips parted like she was going to speak, but nothing came. Mark shifted his weight and took a step forward. Too late. The microphone still in Derek's hand. I stepped into the center of the yard. Hey, Derek, I said. Mind if I borrow that for a sec? He blinked, surprised. Sure, man. Yeah. I took the mic. Silence. Complete silence. I could feel the tension tighten the very air around us. A few neighbors exchanged glances. Sarah from next door held a cup halfway to her mouth, her hand frozen mid-pour. I cleared my throat. I want to thank everyone for coming, I began. I know these barbecues mean a lot to this community. We get to share food, laughter, stories. And most of all, we get to believe in something, that we all know each other, that we're connected. A murmur of agreement. But sometimes, I continued, you realize you don't know your neighbors at all. And worse, you don't even know your spouse. That was the first gasp. I looked toward Dana. She was pale now, eyes wide, her hands clutching her cup like it might anchor her to reality. Beside me, Emily stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but sharp. I've been married to Mark for 11 years. I thought we were happy. I thought I was safe. Turns out, I was just unaware. Mark opened his mouth. Emily. No, she said, not looking at him. Not here. Not today. Whispers started. Some people looked at Mark. Others looked at Dana. The lines were connecting in real time, like someone turning the lights on at the end of a theater show. I found out a few weeks ago, I said, voice steady, that my wife and my neighbor, my so-called friend, have been having an affair. Dana finally stepped forward. Jack, please. I looked at her. How long? Her mouth opened, closed. Her eyes welled. I don't. How long, Dana? She blinked hard. 7 months. A collective breath was sucked in across the lawn. Mark muttered something, but no one cared. All eyes were on Dana now. Emily spoke again. They met in secret. Lied to us. Lied to you, she added, looking at the group. Because you were all part of the performance. All part of what made it easy. The smiles, the compliments, the dinners. They hid behind this community. Mark stepped forward. Okay, that's enough. You've made your point. I handed him the mic. Then go ahead, Mark. Tell everyone the truth. Own it. He hesitated, then lowered his eyes. Emily crossed her arms. The silence was thunderous. The kids didn't know what was going on, but even they had stopped running. Somewhere in the distance, a sprinkler still ticked rhythmically. I looked back at Dana. Tears streaked her cheeks now. Her mascara bled into the corner of her eyes. Was it worth it? I asked quietly. All the sneaking around. All the lying. Did it make you feel alive again? She didn't answer. Maybe she couldn't. I loved you, I said. God help me. I still do in some sick, fractured way. But I don't respect you. And I can't stay with someone I don't respect. That was it. The final cut. She covered her mouth with one hand and stumbled back, like I'd physically hit her. I turned to Emily. She nodded again. We walked off together, side by side, past neighbors who couldn't meet our eyes, past half-eaten plates of potato salad, past the place where our old lives had just been peeled apart in front of everyone. I didn't look back. The moment we crossed the lawn and disappeared out of view, the silence behind us shattered. It started with Dana. A high, broken cry split the air like glass. Not the kind of sob you cry when you're heartbroken, but the kind that spills out when your illusion is crumbling in front of everyone you try to impress. No, no, Jack, please, she shouted. I could hear her footsteps pounding against the grass. I didn't turn around. I can explain. It wasn't like, her voice cracked. You don't understand. It just... Emily's hand found mine again, gently. Don't turn back. I didn't. But the noise swelled behind us. Chairs scraped. A bottle dropped. Murmurs bloomed into fragments of whispered judgment. Did you know? No way. Holy shit. Mark. Dana. Oh my God, here. We reached the front gate and stepped onto the sidewalk like it was sacred ground. I didn't even know where we were going. We just kept walking, away from the music, away from the food, away from the lie that had been our lives for too long. Then the gate behind us slammed open. Jack. I turned, despite myself. Dana stood there, barefoot, mascara running in black streaks down her cheeks, her chest heaving like she'd sprinted a mile. Don't do this here, I said calmly. Her voice was sharp, wild. What are you doing with her? You kiss her? You humiliate me in front of our friends, our kids. What the hell is wrong with you? I blinked, laughed once. You're asking me what's wrong? She stormed toward me, face flushed, fury rising. We could have handled this in private. Why would you do it like this? Emily stepped forward before I could say anything. Maybe because you didn't handle anything in private. You dragged your affair into your neighbors' homes, into their conversations, into your own goddamn backyard. Mark appeared behind her, looking like a man freshly ejected from a nightmare. His shirt was wrinkled. His face was red. He didn't even pretend to look sorry. Jack, man, he started, listen. It just happened. We didn't mean. I cut him off. You did mean it. Every time. Every lie. You didn't just fuck my wife. You played catch in my backyard with my son. You let me grill for you while you were screwing her in a motel down the road. Don't stand here and say it just happened. Mark's mouth opened, then closed. Behind us, more neighbors filtered toward the sidewalk, curiosity overcoming their desire to be polite. Phones were out, maybe to record, maybe just to pretend they weren't staring. Dana stepped closer, voice shaking now. Jack, please. We can talk. Just not like this. We can fix it. There's nothing left to fix, I said. We have a family. No, Dana. We had one. You blew a hole through it the second you decided Mark was worth more than your integrity. Tears spilled freely now. She was unraveling. I wasn't trying to ruin us. I felt invisible. I needed to feel something again. I needed to feel wanted. Emily's voice cut in, ice cold. So you stole someone else's husband? Dana turned to her, venom rising. Oh, shut up. Don't act like you were some perfect wife. You pushed him away. Always working. Always cold. What did you expect? Mark took a step back, eyes wide. Oh, Emily said, calm but deadly. So now it's my fault you couldn't keep it in your pants? Dana pointed at me, voice raw. You don't understand, Jack. You stopped seeing me too. You stopped trying. I nodded. Maybe I did. But I never lied. I never cheated. I never treated your love like something disposable. Her shoulders slumped. Mark looked like he wanted to disappear into the sidewalk. I turned to the crowd. I want to thank everyone for watching this little show. You don't have to guess anymore. Now you all know. And with that, I turned to Emily. Come on. We started walking again. Behind us, I heard Mark hiss. Jesus Christ. Dana, what the hell were you thinking? Oh, don't you put this on me. You were the one who said. Their voices faded behind us, swallowed by the collective silence of a neighborhood trying to process the fallout of something too big to ignore. Emily and I didn't talk for a while. Just walked, side by side. Her hand was still in mine. After a few blocks, she asked, You okay? I exhaled, shaking my head with a smile that wasn't quite bitter. I think I will be. We ended up at the park, the same one where we'd met in secret to plan all this. The bench by the duck pond was empty. We sat, the breeze brushing across our faces like it knew something sacred had just broken open. Emily turned to me. That kiss back there. It wasn't for them, was it? I looked at her, really looked at her. No, I said. It was for me. For you. For us. We sat there until the sun began to sink, saying nothing more. But in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The following days felt like the aftermath of a hurricane. Silent, wrecked, with debris everywhere, but no one quite ready to pick up the pieces. Word spread fast. Not just through the neighborhood, but through the schools, the group chats, the PTA meetings, the Facebook mom circle, the weekend running group. I didn't need to explain anything. I didn't need to answer questions. Our absence from Sunday brunch said enough. The kiss in the backyard said more. And that single sentence I said into the mic, I know everything, echoed longer than any screaming match could have. Dana didn't come home the night after the barbecue. She sent a text around midnight. I'll give you space. I'm at my sister's. Please tell the kids I love them. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked through the house we built together, touched the pictures on the walls, sat on the edge of our bed. No, my bed now, and stared at the indentation her pillow still held. Ellie asked the next morning, why was Mom crying at the party? I told her, gently, that her mom had made a mistake, that we were going to take some time, that I would always be here, and that we loved her very much. Max, older and more aware, didn't ask anything. He just nodded when I told him his mom would be staying elsewhere for a while. Then he went to his room and closed the door. 2 days later, Dana showed up at the house. She didn't knock. She just stood on the porch with puffy eyes and a makeup-free face that reminded me of the girl I once met at a concert in college. Only now, there was no music. Just awkward silence between us. I'm not here to fight, she said. Good, I replied. She stepped inside. The kids were at school. The house was quiet. I lost everything, Jack, she said softly, looking around. You, the kids, my dignity. I didn't say anything. I can't sleep, she added. I keep thinking about you, about that moment. When I saw you kiss her, it broke me. I almost told her what she'd done to me. But she already knew, and I wasn't interested in revenge anymore. I wasn't interested in bleeding all over someone who no longer had the right to hold the knife. Was it real? She asked after a moment. With her? I shrugged. Maybe it will be. She looked at me with a flicker of something, jealousy, pain, maybe just the realization that she hadn't just lost me, she'd given me away. I'm sorry, she whispered. I nodded. I know. She cried quietly. I let her. But I didn't hold her. She left after that, a broken version of the woman I once loved. Mark, on the other hand, wasn't quite so quiet. He tried to call. Once. I ignored it. Then he sent a message a week later. You didn't have to do it like that, man. You humiliated all of us. I deleted it. And then, out of petty curiosity, I checked his social media. His account was dark. No posts. No photos. Rumors said Emily had thrown him out the next morning. She'd changed the locks. Called a lawyer. Good for her. As for Emily and me, we met again. Not in secret. Not in anger. Just human. She invited me over on a warm Wednesday evening, almost 2 weeks after the barbecue. Her porch light was soft. The windows glowed amber. I brought a bottle of wine. She brought out a blanket and 2 glasses. We sat outside like old friends who hadn't yet decided what came next. We talked for hours. Not about them. About us. About who we used to be. About who we might become. I didn't expect any of this, she said, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Me neither, I replied. She looked at me, hesitant. Do you ever think we were meant to find each other through this? I paused. Then, I think we were meant to find each other despite this. She smiled. And then we fell quiet again. It wasn't romantic yet. It wasn't sexual yet. It wasn't a rebound or a fantasy. It was two people, ruined by the same fire, finally finding warmth in each other. Eventually, she asked, "What do you want now?" I didn't hesitate. Peace. Truth. Something that doesn't make me feel like I'm crazy every time I walk into a room. She nodded. Yeah, me too. The night wore on. The stars blinked above us. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to be anyone else. I didn't feel like I was pretending. I didn't feel small. I just felt free. And maybe that's the final chapter no one tells you about betrayal. Not the destruction, not the rage, but what comes after. When the dust settles and you're left with silence and scars, and the terrifying realization that you survived. And that maybe, just maybe, you deserve something better than what you lost.